Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is good to see you guys. Miss you guys. I used to do 2 or 3 lives a day. Do you guys remember that back in the bull market of 2021? Makes me sound old back in the day. But I used to do 2 lives a day, 3 lives a day. Now it's like one every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And a lot of that is I've just been a bit pickier about who I let on. And just want to make sure this is going to be something that's beneficial for you guys or something educational here. It's not just pitching something. This is very interesting to me. We're going to talk today about franchising a little bit. So this is not something we've talked a lot on the channel. We've talked about real estate, crypto, yield farm, and we've talked about everything: Amazon stores, vending machines, but we've not talked much about franchising. So I'm excited to kind of have a conversation about that. Get your questions ready. If you have anything you want to know, ask, and I will bring those questions on. And don't forget to hit like. So, Alex, welcome to the show today. Alex, can you give us just a quick background? Who are you? How'd you end up here? How are we where we're at now?
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all, James. I've started to introduce myself as a serial entrepreneur, and I had a funny response the other day. A woman asked me, like like the breakfast food, and I was like, no, no, not that kind of cereal. But so I'm Alex Smersnak. I'm a three-time now, I guess, entrepreneur. Started in college doing a college laundry and dry cleaning delivery business of all things,
Love that.
and learned a ton doing that. I learned more doing that than any, class I took at Wake Forest, which is where I went undergrad. And not because I had bad professors or anything. I just, getting your hands onto a business and, rolling up your sleeves that way. There's I think no better way to learn. And so got into entrepreneurship in college and then have been doing that ever since. I eventually sold the college laundry business. I did work for Ernst and Young for 2 years, loved the people, but hated the work, and got back into the world of entrepreneurship doing another laundry and dry cleaning business when I saw all the Uber for X businesses pop up. There was Instacart and Shipt and Wag and Rover, and I thought someone's going to do this for laundry and dry cleaning, and why not me? So started 2U Laundry in January of 2016, and then over 8 years raised 33 million in venture capital, launched a dozen cities, ended up building physical laundromats and vertically integrating, and then got into franchising that way. So that's kind of
Mm.
back road into franchising. We started building physical laundromats and thought, for us to get to thousands of locations, this is either going to take 40 years and a lot of money, or could we partner with franchisees and have people that care about each location just as much as we do, but also scale a lot faster. So started franchising a separate business called LaundroLab in 2021. Sold over 100 locations, have about 30 of those locations open today, and in that process learned a ton about the world of franchising. And where the idea for Franzy came to be was, entrepreneurship is amazing, franchising is amazing, but it's not super accessible to everyone. There's got to be a platform kind of like Zillow for buying real estate or looking for real estate deals. And the more I looked, the more I couldn't find anything. And talking to a lot of our franchisees, also realized they had a hard time finding the right business and the right thing. And so with Franzy, we are building the Zillow for franchises, where you can go to it just like you would Zillow and search for availability in your area. You can search by, is there something available for under 100,000? Maybe you have a thesis around fitness franchises, so you could type fitness franchises in, and all of this data starts to populate and recommend the best fit brand for you as you do your research. And there's a lot of other tools, as well, getting pre-qualified from lenders, talking to an actual coach, so someone with franchise experience to help you, along the journey. But all summed up and wrapped into one, it's a tool and a platform to help people get into entrepreneurship.
Okay, I love this. So I want to talk a little bit about franchising in general, just because it's not something we've talked a ton about on my channel. And then I think that will help kind of showcase what Franzy can do to help you as you're doing that. So maybe could you just sum up? We might have people on here who don't even know what franchising is. Like they've heard of it before, they've heard of a franchise, but what exactly is it? How does it compare to other investment types?
Yep. So at its simplest terms, franchising is a relationship between, it's a business model, but between a franchisor, which is kind of like, let's call it corporate or the parent company. It's, James and Alex started a coffee shop. We opened a second one, we opened a third, and eventually we thought, hey, we have a really good operating playbook, a good brand, a good set of systems, and we want to make this business available for other people to run in their cities and their markets. So you and I decide to become franchisors. We're basically packaging up, this underlying business, building playbooks, building guides, tools, resources, etc., and then selling that concept to franchisees to come on as partners, which typically generates revenue for the franchisor in the form of royalties. So we give you the playbook, the tools, the training, the marketing, the brand. Maybe we get bulk purchasing power as the franchisor. And in exchange, we give you all that value to the franchisee. In exchange, we get a percent of your revenue as a royalty. And many times that royalty is reinvested into more training and more programs and continually growing the brand. So at its core, that's the business model. And how it compares to other deals. I mean, or other asset classes, is it really depends. I mean, similar to real estate, you might have a deal with an IRR of 10% all the way up to 30%, and maybe even beyond that, depending on what the deal is. And same thing with franchising. Some models, some businesses, some locations, some operators are able to generate IRRs in the 20%, 30% range, and beyond that. And so it's a good business model to get into business ownership if you don't know where to start and want to run your own business.
Yeah, maybe you could talk about some of the benefits that you have instead of starting your own business or just going out and buying a one-off business. Kind of the advantage you might have going the franchising models, and just what comes to my mind. Again, you're the expert, so you take away. But you have a playbook that's already proven to work in a lot of places. You get the branding. If you're a Subway franchisee, you get that branding out there where you're not no name sub shop, but you're Subway. But can you talk more about kind of the benefits compared to just traditionally buying a business or starting your own business?
Yeah, I think one of the key major benefits is that franchising, I think, de-risks business ownership in a very big way. A lot of people know they might, they want to break away from the 9 to 5. They want to go do something, but they don't know where to start. There is plenty of data out there that shows the 2-year success rate of a franchise versus an independently operated business, is 92% for the franchise, 85% for the independent business. You might be thinking, oh, it's only a 7% difference, big deal. Where it gets really crazy is at the 5-year mark. 50% of independent businesses fail after 5 years. For franchises, it is a 75% success rate after those 5 years. And so that's where it starts to become drastic, where you have this proven playbook, you have a team rallying behind you, from a franchisor perspective, but you also have all these peers that you can go to. So you might be operating 10 Jimmy John's or 5 milkshake factories in your market, and you can go to all these other operators in the markets neighboring you or halfway across the country to share tips, best practices. And so you're really not doing it purely alone like you might be otherwise. And so I think that alone for franchising is the most critical, most important differentiator, is that you've got this complete support system, both in the franchisor and your peers.
Awesome. Love that. And then when we talk about franchising, usually I think most of us think of food, like we think of Subway and those, but there's franchises in all sorts of industries. Do you want to just kind of give some examples and like maybe what a lot of people start with, like what are kind of the entry level franchise options that people a lot of times get into?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because it is a kind of typical misnomer, is that people think McDonald's or Subway, immediately out of the gate. And I didn't realize this until the more I got into it, but franchising makes up about 8% of our country's GDP. So it is massive and it touches everything. So if you think about the different verticals there's the food, franchise vertical, of course, but there's also home services. So more often than not, or more likely than not, if you've used a gutter cleaning business or a window cleaning or a roofing repair or a lawn maintenance company, it's probably a franchise of some sort. So you've got the home services sector that spans all of those things I just mentioned. You have health and wellness, so F45 Fitness, Orange Theory, Crunch, Anytime Fitness, all of those are franchises as well. And there's constantly new concepts coming up. Same thing with the wellness category, chiropractic, IV therapy, mental health and mental wellness. There is, again, a franchise that spans everything. What I love about franchising in the model is that there really is something for everyone. I've seen franchises where the fee to get into it and to become a part of that system is $5,000. So it's, can you come up with $5,000 to, there's one called Card My Yard, for example. It's that, when you probably have seen them in your neighborhoods, but if it's someone's birthday or a new baby was born in the family, you see the kind of cutout cardboard signs in the yard that say like, "Welcome James" or "Happy Birthday James." That's a franchise, and it's $5,000 to get into it, and they provide tons of marketing and scheduling and resources, again, that the franchisee or the entrepreneur would need. So you've got something all the way on $5,000 to get into it, all the way up to Sky Zone or Big Blue Swim School, which is a swim academy. Those might cost 4 or 5 million to build out those facilities because you've got swimming pools and huge trampoline entertainment complexes. And that, again, is what I get excited about with franchising, is that there is something for everyone on the whole spectrum, no matter where you are on the journey. As long as you're willing to take that risk and go for it, and have the desire to be your own boss or chase your own thing, there's something there for you.
Okay, love that. No, very helpful. That was a good pitch for franchises. So I really like that. You kind of talked about it, but how much capital would you say is like, if you don't at least have this amount, maybe don't start looking for franchises? Is there kind of like a low minimum number where you tell people?
Yeah, so again, there's some on that lower end where you could get into, and it's more passive. You're doing the Card My Yard thing. There's commercial cleaning services that are in that same category. I'd say if you're looking to do this more aggressively or to have more financial impact, um, you probably need 50 to 100K in cash to go looking at to start looking at businesses that cost anywhere from 150 to $500,000 to get into, and that's the home services category, health and wellness. You can still get into retail for that amount. You'd probably have to leverage some lending resources, but I tell people 50 to 100 grand cash to bring to the deal is a good place to start, and that opens you up to a lot of interesting things at that point.
Okay, and then what's the trying to put a risk factor on there, but what's the percentage? And we don't need exact numbers, but like how many fail compared to succeeding? And again, how does that compare to traditional businesses where they say for every 10 businesses, 9 of them fail? How does franchising kind of compare to that? Or people, people are worried about, I'm going to put in 100K and I'm going to fail. What would you tell people?
Yep. So I think it was Gallup that put the statistic out, but it was one of the numbers I mentioned earlier, where if you and I were to start a franchise car wash business versus our own independent car wash business, over the course of 2 years, the success rate for the franchise is 92%. For the independent, it's 85% success over 2 years. Over 5 years is where that delta really starts to change a lot. The 5 year success rate for franchising is 76% versus independent, it's 50%, meaning half of businesses, independent businesses after 5 years, fail or shut down. And so franchising, at that point, 1.5x is your chance of success over the long term. And so franchising is a much more accessible, de-risked way to get into business ownership than any alternative.
Okay, love that. And a lot of that's probably from having started some of my own businesses. When you get past that initial hump and you get to where the business is starting to get complicated, where now you have, a staff of 10 or something like that, and you're having to work out HR and payroll and all this stuff. Where a lot of us, when we started our businesses, this is not what we were anticipating doing. But if you go the franchise model, you have support for all that. They already have all these systems in place. And so then there's just a lot better chance for you being able to get over those hurdles, because they make more money when you make more money. So they're really invested in making you successful. So yeah, love that. How often or how long do you typically see from when someone decides, hey, I want to be a franchise owner, to where they start actually making some money from this? And I know it's going to vary drastically based on what you get into, and if you're building a new store somewhere or something like that. But How should someone typically think through that? How long am I going to have to go before I can start making money?
Yep, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So the short answer is it depends, but I think the more informed answer, or hopefully more helpful answer is, the moment that you decide to franchise a business or even explore it, there's probably 90 to 120 days of research and talking to brands. Typically, when a prospective franchisee matches with the right brand and says, "Hey, I want to talk to these two or three," that's when that clock starts ticking. It's about 90 days because it's a mutual evaluation process, just as much as you're looking at the brand and saying, "Hey, is this where I want to spend the next 10 years of my life?" Because it is, I tell people it's the second most important relationship in life outside of who you select as a spouse. You're going to work with this brand for 10 years. You're going to go through ups and downs together. You're going to learn a lot together. And so that 90 days is really kind of a courting period for both sides to see would James be a good operator or franchisee and partner in this, and vice versa. You're looking at the concept saying, is this what I want to invest my time and money and effort into? And so that's just the research part, right? Like 90 to 120 days just to make sure you're doing enough diligence, making a good decision. From there is where it really depends. If it's a retail business, it could take 12 to 18 months to find the site, get the store built, get the store open. And that's, on the longer end. For a home services business, you can get up and running in a month. You do the training, start getting marketing turned on and running, and you're getting again a lot of support from the franchisor. And so I'd say it ranges from all in from the beginning of your research to generating cash, could be 120 days on the low end to a year and a half, or more on the high end. Really just depends on the type of business.
Okay, yeah, that's always the answer. That's how I know someone knows what they're talking about is when they don't give a like specific answer because it always depends. It depends on everything. So that's how I know you're an expert is because you answered that way. So one last question. I do want to get over to Franzy and kind of talk about okay, how does this help you in this journey? How do you traditionally look for franchises and things like that? But maybe one last question about franchises in general. What are you looking for in a good franchise? What are some red flags? Oh no, this isn't a franchise opportunity that I would be interested in. And then maybe you can kind of take that into how does Franzy kind of curate the list of franchises? Because I know there's a lot of scammy franchises out there in the world as
Yep.
well. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So the franchise industry is regulated by the FTC, the Fair Trade Commission, and every brand is required to have what's called an FDD, a franchise disclosure document. And it is this 100 to 200 page long, legally jargon, onerous document. But it's good because it regulates the industry and requires brands to disclose stores opening, stores closing, audited financials. Is there any ongoing litigation or bankruptcy? And so the reason I'm bringing this document up is it's a good resource for people to go to look for these red flags that you asked about. What we've done with Franzy is we've scraped thousands of brands worth of FDDs over a historical time period to say, hey, James, all the stuff you need is in one spot now, so that you don't have to dig through dozens of brands and hundreds of pages of legal documents to figure out these red flags. So to answer the question more directly, yeah, let's just pick Alloy, personal training. If you hit view details, um, this is a brand profile page now where all that information from the FTD is here. What I tell people to look for is, if you want a more de-risked business, look for how many units are open. So a more mature brand, do they have a couple hundred open or more than 50? Some people like emerging brands because it's more white space, more territory they can buy into, and they're really confident, in their ability to operate the business, and they like the founding story and the core locations. That's good enough for them. But if you were a more risk-averse individual, you'd probably look for how many units are open and how long have they been doing this as a good, indicator. You're going to look at the item 19 or this financial summary to see, what is the average, revenue by store across the whole system? How are they doing as a brand and as a business? You're going to want to, if you scroll to the bottom, there is a look. Keep going, just a little bit more. There's this additional information. So we have litigation here, bankruptcy, where it's a PDF viewer. of that FDD. So instead of having to go look through 200 pages again, you can see immediately who is the executive team, is there any ongoing litigation, is there any bankruptcy. Another red flag I'd recommend looking for is, has a brand sold a lot of units but not opened a lot of them, and there's a big lag because that
Mm.
means franchisees aren't opening, and so that net unit growth, you just had the net unit growth you just scrolled by, is a good indicator. If you go down just a little bit, this section here shows, hey, they opened 30 last year. They only, but they shut down 40. So they had a negative net 10, not in this brand. But if you look for and you see a pattern like that, that's a good indicator that, hey, something could be off. I still challenge people to go have a conversation with the brand and ask these questions. So really, Franzy is trying to equip prospects with the data and the information they need to ask good, intelligent questions, because there might be a reason for this. Hey, we slowed down location opens that year so that we could focus on training and building out technology. There might be a reasonable, logical answer that the business did what it did that year. The goal of Franzy is to put a spotlight on some of these things so that people, again, are more equipped and ready to go have these conversations with the brand.
Yeah, and you might get better deals if there's something that's a little off. That's kind of where the good deals usually are because not everyone's looking for them, and so then you can kind of okay, maybe this is a diamond in the rough. So no, this is
Well,
amazing, great information.
that goes back to the emerging brands too. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs or people that want to get into franchising that they love the businesses that have less than 10 open because they're like, I'm in on the ground floor. I
Yeah,
can negotiate my franchise agreement and maybe get better royalties or better franchise fee as a result of it. Plus, I'm going to be one of the first operators, so I'm getting to help build this with the franchisor from the ground up, how we train people, how we find sites, or how we market to customers. Um, Plus the open white space. If I do well with my first three, I can go buy 10 more because it's unlikely they're sold out at this point versus a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A, much more mature brand. There's
yeah,
not a lot of white space and most of the country's sold out. And so there's give and take and there's pros and cons
right.
and trade-offs like anything.
Yeah, it's really similar to crypto. You can get in early and there's a little bit more risk, but more upside, or you can wait and get established things where there's less upside, but there's a lot less risk. Your Subway franchise is probably going to do well, so you don't have to worry that much about it. But finding a spot for a Subway franchise, that's the real trouble these days.
Yep,
Awesome.
that's
This
exactly right.
remind me, financing. Do you want to talk a little bit about what? Because I think sometimes people might look at these numbers and like, okay, I don't have $200,000, so I guess I'll just move on to the next one. But how does financing work? What typically do you see financing wise? Do you recommend people finance for their first? What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because there's some interesting things with the franchise space that I didn't know until I got into it, and that's the SBA loves franchising brands because they're regulated the way that they are, and there's a track record of hey, X location's already open, so why wouldn't the seventh one work or the 70th one work or the 700th one work, or at least have less risk. And so SBA lenders are very great for franchising and sometimes will finance up to 85% of the total project cost plus working capital. And so you don't have to come with more than 15% cash to the deal. Sometimes they'll finance 90%. I've seen in some instances. So the SBA is a great option. There's also another program that I learned about in franchising. It's called a Rob's rollover. And it's where you can actually use your retirement assets tax-free to invest in a franchise business. And I think the thought or the line of thinking why the government allows this is if they're going to let you invest in S&P 500 companies, why shouldn't they let you invest in yourself, running your own business where you have way more control over the outcome and influence over the day-to-day, and why should you be penalized for wanting to invest in yourself? It's almost un-American, and you could argue in some cases. So that's a program that I think a lot of people don't realize exists, but a lot of people that start to look at franchising are informed about or get educated on, and is a path that a lot of people I think do decide to use. So there's SBA lending, there's Rob's rollover. Sometimes brands will do franchisor financing or equipment financing, depending on the type of business. And then there's all sorts of conventional lending you can do as well. And then private capital, where some folks want exposure to 10 trampoline parks, but they don't want to run them. And so someone might go raise a pool of private capital to finance the 10 locations, share in the economics, but then go operate it. I've seen some search funders doing that recently, where they'll go out and raise capital to go buy existing franchisees or brand new locations. So all that to say, Franzy also provides lending, not directly, but we connect you with folks that can help you think through, is the SBA loan right for me? So Fran Fund's one of our partners. They'll help you think through, is an SBA loan the right path for me? Is the Rob's rollover program the right path for me? And they help you get pre-qualified as well, as far as what can I afford and roughly what range could I potentially qualify for from a loan amount.
Yeah, so it might be a good idea if you're interested in this, just go and schedule a consultation and kind of just have in mind, okay, how much capital do you have available? What are you looking to do? Are you looking to be for it to be your full-time job going forward? And then just have a conversation and they'll help you kind of put together what might be right for you. So I like this because they'll be probably more familiar with franchises than if you just go to your local credit union or something. They can help you there, but kind of somebody who's focused more on franchises and things like that, I think might be more beneficial for you. So this is a good question. You kind of talked a little bit about this. Do most smaller franchises require owner operators, or can you be an absentee owner? So yeah, how does somebody think through if they want this to be passive, they want it to be their full-time job? How does somebody think through that?
Yeah, so I hate to say it again, but the answer is it depends. It's some businesses are much more demanding and they require, especially in the first year, a lot more hands-on, a lot more, in the weeds of the business, getting it off the ground. There are other businesses that are semi-absentee though, where you can hire a manager, and they're running it for you, and there's the economics are built in such a way, or sustainable in such a way that you could hire a GM or a store manager to run that retail location or run the field for you. My advice is typically, if you're working a pretty demanding job already, getting into a franchise, is a viable path if you have a spouse or a business partner that can be backup for you. So you might have to go in and work with the team on a Tuesday night after work, or maybe even in the middle of the day. And do you have a spouse again or a business partner that can kind of take trade-offs with you, or you're busy one week or you're out of town traveling, and that week it's the spouse or the business partner's turn, and you're alternating. Um, if you have the ability to commit 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week on top of your job, and really rough it out the first year, after year one is where things really become truly semi absentee and passive, because you now have built up a revenue base to the point where you can hire a GM, and the business is humming and more systematized than it was the first 6 months. um, so again, complicated answer, but it depends on the business model. It also depends on your situation as far as partners and how much time you're able to give.
Yeah. Nope. I think that's a good answer. Yeah. A lot of times you'll see you'll have a capital person and an operator partner together. One has time, one has money, and then together you have this perfect franchise situation. I do like a lot of times I see people too quick to hire out. Like the day one, they're going out and hiring a chief operations officer and all this, and they don't even know yet what these people are going to be doing. They're just getting into the franchise. They aren't real familiar with it. So for all the businesses I've ever done, I like to run it myself, at least for a while, to know here's what I'm going to need to hire out. Here's what they're going to be doing. Otherwise, you end up with staff and they don't even know what they're doing yet, and you don't know what they're doing yet. So any business that I own or I'm a part owner, I like to be somewhat involved because it helps with hiring and things like that. So
That is
great.
a phenomenal tip and piece of advice, and it's something that every business I've built, I've told myself I have to do what I'm about to hire for at least a few weeks. I'm not going to be, perfect at, I'm not writing code necessarily, but I'm going to go learn, about writing code or some element of it, so I can at least talk to it and be intelligent talking to an engineer and understanding what it is that they're saying and doing. And same thing with sales and marketing, and if it's making burgers or folding clothes, in my case, I mean, the amount of fitted sheets I've done and shirts I've folded, it's like you have to do it yourself before you can train someone, or hire someone to do it after you.
Yep.
um, it's not the sexy answer, but it's the honest answer, is that I think most businesses, no matter how you cut it, unless it's crypto or an investment in an equity, um, you've got to roll up your sleeves and dig in for a few months, and there's no way around that. I think hard work is not easily shortcutted.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I found too, a lot of times when you're starting, you have all this funding in place, you have all this money, you feel like you're just swimming in money at the very beginning, and you're like, okay, day one, I'm going to hire, 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 hire. And then that's great until your money starts going down. You're not profitable yet. And you're like, oh, wow, I wish I would have waited on hiring this and this and this. I could have gotten by without that. And so, yeah, I've just from experience, I've learned this is hire, wait to hire until you know what you're hiring for. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But yeah,
my
you can find two people, capital partner, operating partner together. You can split it 50-50. You provide the labor, I provide the capital. I've had a lot of success doing that with people. So
Yep.
awesome. Okay, well, hey, if people want to get started, let's talk about this. If people want to get started, they have no experience, or maybe they have looked at franchises before. Is the best thing to do is you just come on here, create an account. I just created an account. I connected my LinkedIn account to it. Is how I got in there. Then you just start looking around, like what are you interested in, and just start looking around and see what fits.
Yes, if you go back to the home page, you click the Franzy logo, or yeah, or go there. Um, so we've tried to build the platform in a way that it meets you where you are in your journey. So if you're new to franchising, yeah, you can click the link that you're on there, and it pulls up a bunch of really helpful resources. Franchising 101. Some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning of the conversation is like, what's a franchisee? What's a franchisor? How do royalties work? What is a royalty? All of this information, and we'll continually be updating this with actual franchisees telling their stories and video resources as well. But so if you're just getting started, there's resources there. Maybe you're an experienced person and you just want to search, you just want to see what's out there, and fitness concepts. So maybe type in fitness. Yep, and then click search. And so now all the, Orange Theory, Rockbox, all these things come up. And so this is the experience that someone has as a, first time user. So James has created an account and he can search and do what he's doing now. You can start to look at minimum investment. You can look at what the revenue is. You can see how many units they have open. Now you see these things that have locked marks in the corner of, of each tile. What that is we've built this AI powered engine to start curating a list of the highest fit brands for you, but that only becomes useful the more information you share about yourself with us. So all these resources are free to you as a potential franchisee. We never charge franchisees $1 to use any of this. We say internally, we charge franchisees in the form of data or information. So
Mm.
you'll see if you were to click around more, we ask James to fill out a 3-question survey, a 5-question survey, and they're questions that fall into 4 buckets. It's what's your kind of financial readiness and affordability, what's your background in operating operational experience, what's your risk tolerance, and then what are your goals, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish. So we ask you all sorts of questions that fall into one of those 4 buckets, and the more of those questions you answer, the more accurate these matches become. And so this feed actually starts to rank the highest fit brands at the top, regardless of category, or if you want to say fitness, the highest, best fit fitness concepts will show at the top. And those little locked icons on each image start to show a percentile fit. So 95% match, an 80% match, oh, a 20% match. Yeah. And so this is an example of some of those questions is, how much money are you willing to invest? What's your leadership style? What's your net worth? So a lot of these questions, start to come up, and then that list becomes curated.
Okay, very cool. I love these like quizzes. This reminds me of back MySpace days, where you take a quiz and it tells you your perfect movie. I like this. So very cool. So it has kind of this customized questionnaire that'll take you through. I'm not going to put my home address out there, but then it'll start giving you scores and it'll kind of start ranking them based on what's best for you. Let's see.
Yeah, and the other thing I would point out too is there's in the upper left, there's this, schedule free consultation. So we do have, folks on our team that are experts in franchising. They've either owned franchises themselves, they were a franchisor, or are a franchisor like I am. And so you can, this is again free. It's a free resource. You can talk to folks that can walk you through this whole process and answer
Oh,
any
wow.
question you have, help you match with the right brands, come up with a top 3 list for you that's curated, and then walk you through why that those 3 are a good fit. As you have feedback and say, those 3, I don't like those 2, but I like that one. that individual is also taking that feedback, feeding it back into our kind of matching algorithm, and we're constantly learning about what it is that you're looking for and that is going to accomplish your goals, make you happy, make you fulfilled. So that again, this is a worthwhile thing to do the next 10 years. Yeah. So your score is starting to show some now because you'd answer some of those questions. Um,
Yeah, maybe one last question that I would kind of have. I'm just thinking about my audience, and when they're looking through something like this, they're going to see some of these numbers and be like, "Well, that looks good. Minimum investment 275, and you're making 563. That sounds like a pretty good deal there." Um, how should somebody think about, I guess, like this whole process? Like, how is it going to work? So they're on here today. They have, $100,000, $200,000. They're looking to do it. They say, okay, Fitness Premier, that looks good. I like those numbers. What would you kind of, I don't know, how would you walk somebody through that process? You start by looking at financing, then contact them to see if it's a good fit, or what would that process look like for someone?
Yeah, so that's another part of the value that Franzy provides is, depending on where you are in the journey, if you're looking for financing, boom, that's there. So you as an individual might say, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to finance this yet. I should start this pre-qualification process and talk to a lender. So you start down that path. You've also already honed in on this brand, Premier Fitness or Fitness Premier, and it's a good match. So yeah, that's exactly right. You go to connect with the brand. We then facilitate that introduction, and then we play the virtual coach for you the whole way. So now that you've connected with the brand, a Calendly link will come up for verified brands where you can schedule time to go, deeper into the process with that brand. And I always tell people the actual relationship building is with the brand. It's not with Franzy or your Franzy coach. We're here to help you for sure. But the real relationship again is with that brand. You're going to be with them for 10 years. And so when you hit connect with brand, that journey, that part of this journey is just starting. What Franzy does at that point is takes a little bit of a back seat, and we're there when you need us, but we aren't if you don't. And so if you want to talk to your coach again and say, hey, I just had a call with Fitness Premier. They said X, Y, and Z. I'm a little nervous about one of the things they said. Can you talk to me about it? That resource is still there. We'll talk you through how to handle that or how to think through that question. We also provide a ton of virtual resources now. So in your dashboard, once you connect and the brand accepts, the connection, we have all these resources again that say, hey, James, you have an overview call coming up with the, Fitness Premier. Here's what to expect on that call. And here's some, kind of pre-calculated questions or, pre-thought through questions we think you should ask on that call based on what we know about you. So you might have told us, hey, I'm worried about your personal liability. All right, you're looking at Fitness Premier. We might serve you up a question because you said a risk factor was personal liability that says, hey, make sure you ask Fitness Premier how many of their customers have been injured while they were working out, and if anyone's ever been sued because of personal injury, at one of their fitness locations. And so we're giving you these curated questions to make sure that you're thinking about so that you go into those calls confident, prepared. And Franzy provides all that resource as well as you go through the process. We're with you all the way up until you become a franchisee. And this is a little bit sharing some secret sauce and where we're headed to next. But we want to be with you on the journey the whole way through, not just, hey, James, here's the brand, see you, goodbye. All right, now you need your entity formed. Franzy can help you, create the entity. Oh, you need a site. All right, we've got, real estate brokers that we partner with in your area that we want to connect you to. And so we become this, value add resource, not just for finding the business, but for every step after that, outside of what the brand's already doing for you.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I just found too this franchise research tool. So I love these types of questionnaires and things like that. So but yeah, this could be a great tool for you too. I just found up here in tools, the funding tool, match finder. So a lot of cool things. So this is the best tool that I found for starting. If you're wanting to start as a franchisee, this is the best place that I've found that'll get you from knowing nothing to potentially getting started franchising. It's just amazing. So, and all this tools for free. I think that's great. And I think, audience, I would encourage you to go check this out. I know a lot of you, I get emails every week. I have extra capital. I don't want to put it in crypto. I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. What should I do with it? Think about franchising. See if that might be an option for you, with where you're at. So, and then you're a business owner. Don't forget, owning a franchise is owning a business. You are a business owner. Okay. Don't think just because it's a Subway or, a Taco Bell or something like that, don't think, oh, I'm not a business owner. No, you are that business owner. You've just been given a playbook where they know, hey, these are the recipes that everybody likes. Here's the way that managing employees that works. Here's the wages that works. Here's the pricing. We've market tested pricing all over the country, all over the world. Here's what works best. And it's just a shortcut to a lot of those tools. So would love for everyone to go check out Franzy. Alex, I'd love to have you back sometime too, because this is an asset class that I just have not brought onto the channel much. But I think it's a really powerful one, especially for people wanting to dip their toes into entrepreneurism. And so I'd love to have you back to talk more about this in the future if you're open to that.
No, absolutely. I am very passionate about it, if you can't tell, and I agree. It's a huge asset class, and I think it's only going to continue to grow. I mean, a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and I think with more and more people in the future of work, people want, to have this kind of autonomy and this own, control over their life and their day. And I think franchising is a great place to start if you don't have some immediate idea that's, burning a hole in your pocket and you're ready to do. So I appreciate you having me on. I would love to, to continue the conversation and talk more about it at some point in the future.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much, audience. Appreciate you guys very much. Again, couldn't have people like Alex on if you guys didn't come on and watch. So thank you guys so much. Hope this was valuable for you, even if you don't get involved. Hopefully it gives you a taste for what is franchising, maybe plant some seeds for future endeavors that you might have. Who knows? You might make, $1 million on Bitcoin and be looking for somewhere to plant that. And a franchise might be your option. So thank you, audience. Thank you, Alex. God bless you all. I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and we will talk to you later.